Okay, so let's start. I'm really happy to be here. And just like Kevin mentioned earlier, today we'll talk about some tips to ace a job interview. And in order to do that, I will share with you a short summary about my employment history. I changed in the latest 12 years 3 companies. I started as an Android developer, then I started 5 years later, I started to grow a team of mobile developers. I had at that moment 8 mobile developers. And after that, I changed the company and become a squad lead developer. I managed 3 teams, 3 cross-functional teams. For about 3 years, we developed an app that was the first telecom subscription from fully digital telecom subscription from Romania. And right now, I'm an engineering manager at Adobe, and I have 2 teams. That with whom I work right now. And just like I mentioned earlier, I will cover some steps that you could follow in order to have a successful experience with the job interviews. And I prepared for you 3.5 steps in order to do that. So first of all, we will talk a little bit about what should we do before the interview, how to prepare. Then how should we plan the day of the interview, and what should be done after the interview was done. And surprise, the latest step, the 3.5 step, it's a secret element that I will share with you at the end. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about the kind of the interviews that you could cover. Besides the technical ones, where the interviewers or the employers usually try to assess your technical knowledge, your technical skills, coding skills, or maybe system design skills, or it's just a maybe a phone interview skills where you are. Answering questions regarding to different topics from the technical side. There are also some non-technical interviews, and usually there are 3 big categories. There are the behavioral ones. Some companies call them soft skills interview or people skills interview. There are the assignments when you get sometimes a use case or a scenario, and you need to provide the solution. And there are also the role playing ones, but I didn't add them here. Until now, in my career, I covered these 2 types. And today we'll focus more on the behavioral one. So on the behavioral one, actually, the employers wants to see how you have performed and behaved in the past in both positive and negative situations. And for that, we will cover those steps. So, what should we do before the interview? How to prepare? And we have 3 things that we should cover. First of all, we need to learn about the process. And here the recommendation is to clarify with the recruiter or with the person with whom you are keeping the conversations regarding that employer. Clarify with that person the process of the interviews. What's the next interview? How long it will take? Who will be involved in that interview? What kind of skills are assessed? And make sure you know exactly what should happen during that interview. After you clarify this part, you should start reviewing the job description, the job requirements. And usually they have some requests about being a team player, or maybe working for cross-cultural team, and something like things similar with these 2. So start to review the job requirement, and for each point, try to prepare 2 or 3 samples from your past experience. Okay, if they are curious about how you were a team player in the past, try to remember 2 or 3 situations that will cover that thing in order to be prepared and remember all the things that happened behind. If you're at the beginning, for sure it will be easier, but if you have more experience and maybe you have 10 years or more than 10 years and you change 3 or 4 companies, it will be difficult to have on the spot that answer. So this is why it's important to have some examples prepared. Also, after you learn about the requirement from the job description, try to organize yourself, and based on how much time you have, try to have a plan and decide which topics to cover each day or each week, depending on how much time you have. Okay, then it's important to learn also about the company. Search on their websites, try to understand what is their vision, what are their values, their principles, and also try to see some matching samples from your experience that will emphasize those values. For example, at Adobe, we have some capabilities: be a leader, be focused, and be creative. And try for this scenario, you could try to find some situations that will cover these capabilities, because by having this matching, you will be able to prepare your answers that will match also the interview expectations. Also identify some keywords. Usually you could find them also on their website or on the job description, and try to use those keywords in your answers. Maybe they have something like cross-functional team, or performance, or user experience, or customer experience. Try to focus and emphasize those things in your answers. And usually it's also helpful to start practicing with a friend or a colleague that could help you and give you your feedback in order to improve your answers and make sure you cover all the relevant things. After you cover those two areas, you should also learn about yourself. What do I mean by that? When you have an interview, it's very important to know yourself better, and to know exactly what are your strengths, your interests, your values, your experiences, because these are the things that you bring to that job. And in order to have all these things covered, other than preparing those and covering those points from the job descriptions, try to remember 2 or 3 situations from your past experience that are very rich in challenges, or in lessons learned, or in innovation or creativity, and try to use those scenarios in order to uh, be able to match those situations to multiple questions, because it will be difficult to find a specific situation for each question. So try to analyze your past experience and discover these 3 or 4 situations that are very rich in content and lessons learned. And also, don't forget to take care of yourself, because usually this interviewing experience sometimes is not so easy, or it's stressful, or you have also a job full time, you have a family, you have other things to cover and to resolve. So it's important also to take care about yourself, to sleep enough, to take breaks, to exercise, go outside, eat healthy. So don't forget to check these things, because your mood will help you also to have a smooth experience. Now, talking again about knowing yourself, what I will recommend you, and this advice I got it also from a coach in the past, is to try to do a personal SWOT analysis. I mean, try to get a piece of paper, split it in 4 areas, and identify your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and the threats. Now, in terms of strengths, to identify them, you could listen for feedback. You could consider your skills, your achievements, your passions, and also try to pay attention when you are most productive. Or also, you could ask others to give you feedback and let you know what are your strengths. Another option to discover your strengths is to use the Strengths Finder. It's a tool from Gallup that I really recommend. And for example, for myself, I think I've done this test 2 or 3 years ago, and I was aware about some strengths, but for the other ones, I knew that I have some skills in those areas, but I was not so aware about them. So it helped me to understand better what are my strengths. And also, the good part is that the book and the test, they offer you some ideas about what things you could add, or what things you could do next in order to make sure you use properly your strengths. So I truly recommend you that Gallup test. On the weaknesses side, there could be skills that you should improve. On the opportunities, you should check based on your skills. Maybe you like to talk at the conferences. Maybe a new project arises in your department, or the industry is growing and there are a lot of opportunities. And threats, anything that could be an impediment. Maybe some changes, maybe reorg, or something like that. After you've done this SWOT analysis, you'll get a better understanding about the areas that you are very good at and the areas that you should work more on it. And also based on that, you could prepare your plan in order to be ready for an interview. And when you prepare the plan, um, I recommend you, for example, for my case, in the past, I used to create goals, to have objectives. I had a Trello board, and at the beginning of the year, actually in December for the next year, I created that board with what I want to achieve in the next year. And all the time I had an entire list with the things that I would like to achieve. A part of them were done, a part of them not. And after I read this book, Atomic Habits, I realized that actually, yeah, it's good to set some goals, but you should have a system that will help you to achieve those goals. And this system is related to the habits. And I realized that I should build some good habits. For example, if I want to read more, okay, how can I do that? And my approach was to, in the morning, I enjoy drinking hot coffee. So this was a habit already for me. So I decided that, okay, because I already have this habit, let's try to connect it with the idea, with my goal of reading each day a few pages from a book. And so what I've done was to in the morning I prepare my coffee, and after it's done, I take my book, and during when I'm drinking also coffee, I also read. So this is how I make sure that I check that objective, and each day I read at least 10 or 20 pages based on how much time I have. So try to identify your goals and build some systems, some habits that will help you to achieve those goals, and also be aware about the bad habits, because sometimes we have also bad habits. I had challenges at the beginning with the social media. I remember that I just wanted to check what's happening because I had a short break. And after that, I discovered that 30 minutes later, I'm still there. So what I've done, I uninstalled those apps. And I also, for the ones that could become the next replacement for the social media apps, I added some limitations in order to make sure I will not access them. So try to break the bad habits and build good habits. Okay. It's also possible to prepare some things in advance in order to not be necessary to be very creative in that moment, because usually, especially for my case, I can tell if I'm nervous or anxious, I'm not so able to be creative and to come with a smart answer, or to offer a relevant answer, even if maybe I knew the answer, but in that moment, sometimes I find it difficult to bring it up. So what you could prepare in advance is to have a pitch ready, because usually they ask you to present yourself. And here, especially when you talk about your achievements, you should include numbers to make them more relevant. And also sometimes they ask you to offer feedback about the process, about that interview, about something related to your experience. And now talking about what kind of questions to expect, usually there are three kinds of questions. There are the behavioral questions. Tell me about a time when, so it's something related to your experience. Hypothetical questions. What if you need to? It's something that what you will do in that situation. And small talk questions. You could talk about your hobbies, books, movie, trips, depending on the interviewer. And talking about the behavioral and the hypothetical questions, you should consider some areas. For example, it's possible to ask you about a situation when you interact with a difficult person, or you had a difficult situation or project or task or decision, how you make decisions, how you create some innovative solutions, how you handle ambiguity, lessons learned, success stories, how you give or receive feedback, how you prioritize your work, your task. And also based on how many years of experience you have, or based on the job on which you applied or you are giving the interview, these questions could go also on this part with the delegation and empowerment, especially on the on the senior levels or the leadership levels, and also about mentoring and learning, how you mentor other people, how are you learning, how are you building some learning plans for your colleagues, and so on. So usually these are the areas that you could consider to prepare yourself to be asked about. And you should also take in consideration that usually these interviews are two ways conversations, because the interviewer needs to understand if you are a good fit for their company or for their team, but you should also learn if they are a good fit for you. So I recommend you to have some questions prepared. And these questions could be identified by starting to think about what are the things that are important for you at the next job. It could start from something that you don't have, or from things that you like to have more. I don't know, maybe you want to have a work-life balance, move to the next level of your career, or have multiple opportunities for learning and development. So try to understand what's important for you, and based on that, try to formulate the questions and have them prepared. You could also have them on the paper or written in a document. How do you prefer, in order to make sure that you will have the opportunity to address them, and you don't forget to ask one specific question. So these questions could be about the team structure, the stakeholders, the managers, and also about the processes. Learn about the project, it's a legacy one or not. They are working with agile or not. They have an on-call procedure, how the onboarding will happen, what are the learning opportunities, and so on. So try to understand exactly what's important for you. Now, the second step, the day of the interview. The recommendation is to try to focus only on the interview experience in that day, and try to make a very limited number of decisions. I mean, try to know exactly from advance what you will eat in that day, drink, or where, because if you discover in the morning that you love to drink coffee and you don't have coffee at home, and you go to the store and there you'll find a queue, and then they maybe you don't have enough money on your card, and you go to access your mobile to put some money on the card, and you already have a bad mood, and you are anxious and you are nervous, and this mood will impact your experience. So try to have everything prepared before the interview, before that day. Make sure you are feeling comfortable. If it's online, try to not have clothes with lines or patterns that will make the interview difficult to watch at you. I mean, they could be disturbing. Also, try to not have accessories that could make noise, because I think it's not okay to hear a pen or something like that during the interview. And if it's online, also try to set up your camera. Usually it's okay, just like you see in my case, to have some space above your head and the margin of the screen, and also try to center yourself in the camera. Try to check the lights, the microphone. And if you decide to use a virtual background, because maybe in the back you have, I don't know, a bed or something that you don't like to show in the interview, and you use a virtual background, try to test it. And usually don't wear white clothes, because they will see on your head and it will look weird. If it's offline, make sure you know how to go there, and have at least 30 minutes buffer in order to make sure you are not in a hurry. And also you should have next to you a notebook or a document, if it's online, where you could add notes, or maybe add the questions that they ask you, and so on. your resume and the job description, because maybe they will ask you something very in very detail and you don't remember exactly. And usually the water is very helpful to have it next to you. Now, how to answer? You got the question. First of all, make sure you understood the question. So make the clarification and confirmation. Let me check if I understood correctly and try to rephrase what you have understood. Also, you could ask for extra time to think about that answer. Don't be afraid to admit that you don't know something. It's better to say that you don't know than try to pretend that you know something. Be aware about your assumptions, because sometimes you could make some assumptions when you offer the answer. So let the interviewer also know about that. And also be mindful about your body language. And here I'm talking also about from my experience of interviewer. At a moment, I had a candidate that was very nervous, and she's doing something like that. It was very, very nervous and very active, and it was very difficult for me to follow her and also to focus on what she's saying. So try to be mindful about your body language. Now, how to answer at those questions, especially for this behavioral question, try to keep your answers focused, because usually the interviewers have a script and you want to make sure that you cover all that script. So here you have 3 methods. You have the STAR method, that it's a more detailed one when you describe the situation, the task, the action, and the result. You could use the CAR method, which is the shortest version: context, the action taken, and the result. Another thing that you could be helpful is I've done a course, Think on Your Feet. It's a communication course, and I really enjoyed it because it offers you 6 different methods that you could apply when you get a question and you don't know exactly what you will answer. And this methodology is based on the fact that you, first of all, you try to analyze what you should answer, what method to use, and after that, start to build the answer based on that method. Okay, and I prepared here some templates. For example, for the STAR method, tell me about the time when you perform well under stress. This is the question. This is the scenario that you should describe. And if you use the STAR method, will sound like this: the situation. One time at my last job, my coworker had a family emergency and needed to miss work for some time, and her project was left unfinished and without a manager. So you cover that context. Then the task. What you need to do. My manager instructed me to take on the project, and I had days to complete a project that originally should have taken several weeks. The action, what you have done. I was able to delegate a part of my goals to some of my teammates, and the result, with the reduction in my daily goals, I was able to dedicate more time to the special project, and this allowed me to finish it, and finally I got the promotion. So try to, when you get the question, try to split your answer on these 4 areas. And for the CAR template method, describe a situation when one of your team members complain about his job. You describe the context or the challenge, what have you done, the action, and finally the results, what did you achieve. And by using this structure, you'll keep your focus on the question. Okay, let's say that the interview is done. The step number 3, what to cover at the end. You should ask when you could get the feedback about that interview. It is recommended also to send a thank you note to the person with whom you discussed during the interview. And also at the end, try to know the question that you got during the interview in order to reassess your answers and maybe practice for the next interview if this one will not be a successful one. And another recommendation will be to have to prepare something like a retrospective about your experience. Have you set some realistic goals when you prepared? I mean, did you had enough time to do that? Have you prepared enough for that? Or have you had enough resources to prepare yourself? Have you presented yourself in the best possible manner? What you forgot to add, or what was not so great? And try to identify some actions that you should start, stop, and continue doing for the next interview. And now the secret element, the step 3.5, is the confidence and enthusiasm. Don't forget to be confident. Trust yourself, because you should be the biggest promoter and the biggest fan of yourself. And remember to have courage and challenge yourself. And I think an important thing here is to enjoy also the journey, not only the destination. Because yeah, sometimes maybe that job is not the right thing for you, and maybe the match is not the right one. But for sure, during that time when you prepare for the interview, during the interview, and after that, you learn a lot of things. You discover some things about the new company, you discover some new things about you, you discover some new questions that the interview addressed to you. So enjoy also the journey, and not only the objective of it. And finally, if it's difficult, take a break and start over. Don't renounce. Try to be perseverant, because you got this.